Canada's daytime sports talk show continues. I already got questions coming in from Blue Jays fans from coast to coast for Todd Stottlemyre, a man who really needs no introduction, but 1988 to 1994 with Canada's team, the Toronto Blue Jays, where he won 2 World Series, and then stops in Oakland, St. Louis, Texas, and Arizona. And he joins us today on video chat, and I think it is from Arizona today. Todd, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for the time. Big fan here, and I have to say, every year I MC the Regina Red Sox banquet. The one year I miss, you're there to speak at it, and they're still talking about it. What do you remember about that night, Todd?
I just remember I got to tell you, it was heartwarming because just to see all the people come together, number one, for the banquet, and the banquet was obviously to support the local baseball team there. And, you know, I think that one of the things I didn't realize is just how many baseball fans there truly are throughout the country of Canada. So it was a great experience for me. I had a lot of fun and had a great time on stage during the interview, answering the questions. And it was a lot of fun for me.
Well, that's why I was so excited to have you on here today, because Western Canada, you've been out here a few times. The Blue Jays train never really slowed down. You know what I mean? Like, we went 20 years between playoff berths, but the last few years have been exciting. And I'll give you an example. DG in Saskatoon has written us on the text line. He says, "Morning, guys. I want to get a message to Todd Stottlemyre. Your slide into third base in Game 4 of the 93 World Series is one of the most memorable sports events of my childhood. 10-year-old me loved it. I'll never forget that 15-14 Blue Jays win." What do you think when you hear things like that?
Well, you know, I guess you got to be remembered for something. I'm not so sure that's like my best performance on a baseball field, but I will say this, that that was a crazy game. And by the way, to the person who commented or sent the message, and I appreciate it. And you know, one of the things that's really cool for me, even today, that, you know, especially to have, you know, have incoming mail, and a lot of people from Canada sending baseball cards, and I'm just humbled and honored. I still get to sign cards today. People still remember, and, you know, so I'm grateful, because I'm grateful that I got an opportunity to live out my childhood dream, and living out that childhood dream and it coming to real life happened for me in the country of Canada, and then to win the World Championships there. So. And to play on those great teams was really, really awesome. That slide into third base, I don't think it'd be a very good teaching video to teach people how to slide head first into third base. But nonetheless, it was kind of true to my form at that time. And I was just all out all the time, and just always going for it. And a lot of times, because maybe emotionally I would get caught up into a game or something, sometimes it would end up not in the greatest result. But at the same time, you know, I always said, well, I'm just going to go do the best I can.
You know what? It embodied the entire attitude of that Blue Jays team, I think. And I will tell you this, because I was watching it live. My co-host here was born in 87, so he might not even remember. My producer was born in 91. I'd be shocked if he remembered. But through the pandemic, Sportsnet's been airing old Blue Jays games, and you guys have been watching those, right? And one thing that it reminded me of, Todd, is what seemed to be how close you guys were. Joe Carter, Robbie Alomar, of course, Pat Borders, Cito on top of it all. You just seemed like a really special group. You played on other teams. It couldn't have rivaled that, I wouldn't think, what you guys had.
Well, you know, everything rises and falls on leadership. It really started with Paul Beeson, and, you know, who was in charge, and from Paul Beeson to Pat Gillick, and Pat Gillick to Cito Gaston, and then Cito Gaston to, you know, some incredible talent. And, you know, it's not always easy for the manager to manage the psychology of a bunch of guys that are truly great players. And that team consisted of guys that were truly great players. But I think you nailed it. I mean, we had so much fun together, whether we were in the locker room, whether we were on a team bus, a team airplane. Because you basically become family when you spend that much time together. And you know, it's a bond that also can't be broken. I always tell people, ask me all the time, and it's like, when I've been back for the 92, 93 World Championship reunions, it's as if it was just had happened. Everyone kind of is funny. It's like we went and played in a golf tournament one year, and everyone sat in kind of the same location on the bus that they used to sit, and people were razzing one another just the same way they used to razz one another. And it's a bond, and it's a brotherhood that just can't be broken. And no question that team was committed to one another. And even though each player had its own unique greatness, there was something weird that happened at 7:00, 7:05. The lights are turned on. It's game time. And you've seen all of these people and different personalities and different talent come from different countries, come together as one, pull the same rope, have the same vision, and care truly about one another.
That's why you won. And now the fun questions from Brett. Did you and the mayor of Philly ever have a truce? Apparently you told him to kiss part of your body.
Yeah, what's funny about that is, that all started in prior to Game 4. It's the only time a starting pitcher goes and faces the media and goes through an interview prior to pitching in a game. It's always post. But in a World Series, you have a conversation with the media before the game or prior to the game the day before, and then after the game. So, when I walked in with Howie Starkman, our PR director, and, the questions started flying from the mayor said this, the mayor said that, and then, emotionally I got engaged in it. And that's never a good thing as an athlete, but I got sucked into it and kind of started competing with that conversation. And then, of course, I had my not so famous words, "You can kiss my what," and not being smart enough to understand it was being televised, not only nationally, but internationally. But here, and then I remember a couple days after the World Series, I thought, let's make something good out of something bad that happened. And, through that whole conversation, and I actually called the mayor's office and I asked to speak to the mayor, and they asked who's calling. I said, "This is Todd Stottlemyre." They said, "Hold on a second." And they put the phone on hold. He came back and they said, "Sorry, the mayor's not available." And so he didn't want to take the call, I guess. But I don't blame him. But at the same time, I called the mayor's office thinking, "Hey, why don't we put an event together where you actually try to hit off of me, and we'll raise money for Philadelphia, we'll raise money for Toronto and the country of Canada, and we'll give the money away to youth sports or somebody that is in great need, and we'll take something that's bad that's happened or controversial. Let's make something good out of it and have fun with it." But I wanted to do that to put an end to it, and kind of call a truce. And I thought we both took the wrong positions in it, but at the same time, that never happened, and so obviously we just had to let it go.
Well, live and learn. But I think that's why we loved you so much, the emotion. So from another viewer, Darren Bradley, who, by the way, is a mayoral candidate in our current civic election, Todd. He said, "Todd is an amazing person. After baseball, he's the reason my life has changed after talking to him at the dinner behind the scenes. Absolutely love Todd. Thanks for everything. Read his books." And I wanted to get into that. That's a perfect segue into it. What are you doing now, Todd?
Well, I got to say that warms my heart. You wonder sometimes, you wake up, go out throughout the day, and you wonder, it's like, I send a lot of messaging out on social media and this and that. And of course, I've had to go through, some big changes, mentally and emotionally. And you ask and you kind of great lead in, and I appreciate that. But, I just finished writing my second, the name of the book is The Observer, a modern fable to mastering your emotions. And, what led to that book, sorry about that, guys. What led to that book,
we're going to audio only. Continue. We can hear you. We can't see you. The guys are fixing it in the back. Continue, Todd.
Yeah. Yeah. So what really led to writing this book was, shortly after the 1993 World Series, one of the things that I got to a point where I was like, I didn't like the way I was performing on the field. What I really mean is I thought I could do so much more. I didn't think I was coming close to my potential. But I also didn't like the way I was responding to certain situations off the field. And I thought, man, I'm a better person than this. And based on all of this is like, I reached out to a guy who happens to, at the time he was baseball's mindset coach and wrote the mental game of baseball. And his name was Harvey Dorfman. And he'd worked with a lot of Hall of Famers and a lot of pitchers and helped people turn their careers around. And I reached out to him and I said, Harvey, I said, this is Todd Stottlemyre. I said, man, I'd love to meet with you. And he said, man, I've been waiting on you. And I was like, wow. I didn't even know he knew who I was. And so we ended up booking a meeting before the 94 season, and we met in a hotel room, and we spent 12 hours together. And in the first hour, he asked me a very, very important question. He said, Todd, I'm going to ask you a question. He says, would you do it all over again? And I was like, I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, would I do what all over again? He said, would you give that bone marrow transplant to your little brother? Would you do it? And I was like, wow. And I just emotionally broke into tears. And I said, Harvey, I said, I would do it every minute, every hour, every day, every week. I would do it over and over and over. And that bone marrow transplant he was referring to was 12 years prior to that. When I was 15, my little brother was 11. I gave him the bone marrow transplant, ended up putting him into a coma, and then he passed afterwards. And I left that hospital with traditional sadness, but I also left with hate and guilt. And, I never healed that hate and guilt. So every time I couldn't control the situation, the hate and guilt would come to the surface, and I couldn't control it. And it would, and then I would respond to certain situations in a horrible way and very emotionally. And it wasn't. And then when he said, if you would do it all over again, and knowing you did everything you could do last time, and if you would do it all over again, he says, Todd, I need you to let that go. He says, you need to forgive yourself and just let it go, because you already did it. And it's the first time I'd ever heard those words in 12 years. And I was like, I just broke down. And then he said to me, he said, it was very important. He said, Todd, if you would have said no, I would have told you, change today to honor the defeat. And I was just like blown away. In the last hour, though, it became life-changing when he put me on a 7-day challenge. And in the 7-day challenge, here's what he said to me. He said, you are not allowed to respond to anything in the next seven days, not mentally, not emotionally. He said, the only thing you can do is document how you're thinking and how you're feeling. You're not allowed to respond for 7 days. Just document. Here's what he said. I want you to observe your thoughts, and I want you to observe your emotions. And he says, because what you have done in your whole life, it's been knee jerk. And it's like every time you can't control something, you compete against it. And all of this hate and guilt is flying out of you. He says, I need to teach you to learn about your thoughts and about your emotions. I did this for 7 days, but I've not only did it for 7 days, I've been doing it every single day since then. It was life-changing for me. And through that, he gave me tools to put in the tool chest that said, listen, if you'll become completely aware around your thoughts and emotions, you can step away from it and make better decisions and respond differently to certain things. And I was like, I needed that. I knew I needed that. And that was the making of this book, The Observer. And it was, it was based on me having to become the observer of my life to understand the state and awareness of my thoughts and emotions and what state I was in. Because as human beings, we have the power to change our state anytime we want. Just think about the world we're in today and how much hate there is and how much knee-jerk reaction and how everyone's got to be right instead of people understand other's opinion. See, I didn't want to be right. I just wanted to compete and win all. And because I wanted to compete and win all the time, every time there was something that wasn't going the way I wanted to, these emotions would then surface. And as those emotions surfaced, they would take me to places of no return, sometimes even blacking out. I would get so mad. And what would that do? That would cost us games on the baseball field, but it would cost me relationships off the field. It would cost me being the best version of myself. So for me, since my baseball career, man, it's just been one day after another and studying, reflecting, understanding, building upon it. And now I want to share it with the world because that was my mess I was in. I was living in hate and guilt. And I had to heal the hate and guilt in order to deliver the message. And I'm delivering the message through the book, The Observer. So it doesn't matter where you're at, and even if you say, man, Todd, I'm doing great. I don't need to read the book. I will tell you that if you think you're doing great and you're resting there, you've died on your feet. So I believe that the book is for everyone.
That's Recovery Coaching 101. And good for you for giving back. And that guy obviously extended your career and also changed your life, as you mentioned. And we only got a couple minutes left, Todd, but I got to tell you this. My first job in this business was operating Blue Jays radio broadcasts on CFSL Weyburn. The voice of the team was Tom Cheek. You know him. And he always referenced your dad, Mel Stottlemyre. And I was looking at Mel's Wikipedia this morning, and it never said, like, what did Mel have a role with the Blue Jays? Was he on the bench? Because if you go check at his Wikipedia, it doesn't say that he coached with the Blue Jays, but Tom always talked about him.
No, he never did. And I think that, the baseball world admired my father for the person he was, the coach he was, the player he was, and he was just so admired by the baseball community, and rightfully so. And at the time of his passing, I just remember telling people, I was like, if you look, and owners in baseball, writers in baseball, teammates that he had, coaches, managers, the entire community around the baseball and around sports was paying tributes to my father. And I remember saying to people, I said, publicly, my father is being admired and respected, and they're paying tributes. I said, but let me explain something. Is my father was 10 times that man privately than he was publicly. See, my father was my hero. He was my best friend. He was my brother. He was my father. He was my mentor. He was my coach. He was absolutely, hands down, the greatest man I've ever met. And he was 10, I'm telling you, he was 10 times that person, which is why I think the baseball world fell in love with him. So I'm forever grateful. His legacy lives in my heart. He paved one hell of a road to try to follow. I would tell you that that's the challenge. He left a big shadow, but I'm so forever grateful for his life, for him being my father, and for everything that he meant for not only my life, but for a lot of people's lives.
Well, he'd be proud that you're carrying it on. And my dad worked 26 years in the NHL. He left us in 2018. And I never got tired of people asking me, how's your dad? How's your dad? How's your dad?
Right.
Everywhere I went, I loved it. And to be the exact same thing with you. So, but yourself, Todd, a Canadian sports icon, huge fans here. We do got to run, but The Observer's the book. I'm assuming they can order it anywhere.
You can go to Amazon.ca. You can go anywhere, Barnes & Noble. You can come to toddofficial.com. I'm also launched a free book club. Then I'm going to go through the book chapter by chapter throughout 2021, talk about the influence, talk about where I got the lessons, applied them, who they came from people like Cito Gaston, my father, Yogi Berra, Mickey Mantle. Lots of lessons in the book. It's a modern fable. I built characters into it, and it's based on real, true life events of dealing with cancer, dealing with success, dealing with failure, and going through it. So, man, I hope you'll reach out, and guys, I hope you'll reach out and order the book and come join the book club, totally free, and let's hang out all year 2021 going through the book together.
I think we all need it. Todd Stottlemyre, thank you. Keep it up down there.
Love you, man. Appreciate you.
Love you too. Thank you, Todd.
Me on your show, so
you
guys
bet.
are awesome. Thank you.
Stay safe. Todd Stottlemyre from Phoenix, Arizona. The best.
What a story.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.